Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about compromises. So let's get into it. Now, just this morning actually, I got back in touch with someone who reached out, and well, basically I had this person send me an email about application structure, and he had this kind of idea around an application that he was maintaining for I think it was around 40 different customers. Now, basically the structure of this application is still unknown to me because I haven't really been clued into exactly how the application itself should be working, but he was more asking about he wanted to just rubber duck a little bit about some ideas he had about supporting a multi-customer system. And since I have a little bit of experience doing this sort of thing, I thought I could help out. Now, his suggestion was that he would allow the customer from the client's perspective to define which customer it actually is, and then in accordance with that, be able to instantiate the right models and that sort of thing. And then each customer would have their own database. And so I started I had a small sample sent to me just to kind of figure out how the application was working. And I was looking at it, and I kind of told them that, if you have a multi-tenant system or multi-client system where the need is that you have different models for each customer with a high level of customization, that means that if you have all of the models are different, and you can't squeeze them into one single model, or you can't create an interface on top or something like that, or for some reason you need this separation of concerns where you don't want customer A's data to be with the same data as customer B. And I told them, what in essence you do, what you're doing in essence at this point is to create you're basically running multiple systems, because your system as a whole cannot cater to the same sort of, it's a different application for each customer. Even if the deviations are very small, it's still a different system. And so his thought was that maybe he could have all of these applications running together in one single instance and then do database calls based on who's making the request. And I said, I don't think that doesn't sound like a good idea, where you do different database. If you're supposed to be able to manage in a sustainable way which database you're contacting with what data at runtime, and have multiple connection possibilities, that sounds to me like a really insecure, the odds of you wiring up that incorrectly so that that customer A gets data from customer B, that sounds like a fairly likely scenario, right? And so we started talking. I said, for me, what makes sense, and the thing that we do at my company is that we split the application, we split the application at the application level so that we can instantiate it at runtime and run an instance that is specific to that customer. So in other words, you have the same application, but you split it so that there's a one-to-one mapping. You have one instance running for customer A, you have one instance for customer B, and they all have their own database. They can never connect to each other. They're just isolated, right? And he said, yeah, that's basically the idea I've had so far, but the problem there is that I have so much monitoring and stuff of that nature when I have that application structure. And then I kind of go, well, yeah, you're running multiple systems. And he goes, well, but I thought I could kind of solve it this way. And I said, yeah, of course you can solve this. But you see, the downside with what you're suggesting is that now you're saying that, okay, so I will have a single instance that now needs to connect to, whether you can have multiple instances and have one database or multiple databases that you connect to. And the problem here is that now all of your customers are going to connect to that one instance, which means that you are going to have to keep yourself very sure that you're not that you don't make any mistakes. Because if you for any reason create a situation where customer A gets to data that they're not supposed to be getting to, when you have this separation of the model, and that's not just even talking about the issues that this is going to cascade up into the code, because what's going to happen is that if the model can be different for each request, that means that the code also needs to be different for each request. In other words, unless you have, because unless you have, you would literally have to have almost a switch statement on every request that specifies who's making the request, because this is all done in Node.js, right? Which means that now you need to know on every single request where you're going to pipe that request, because they're not the same. It's not the same model, and if it's not the same model, and you can't create it. And that's what I asked him. Like, I will see what he replies with today, because like the sane way to do this is to create an interface. In other words, you have all these deviations in the models, and then you create an interface that is common for all of them, and then you simply instantiate the one that is, that you need, using polymorphism to kind of to get over this problem with differences in the model. We'll see where we land. But what I want to talk to you guys about here is that this is a classic scenario when it's a trade-off situation. You can either get the complexity at the operations level, because having multiple instances of the same application when you have all that much customization for each use case, that's a really big investment, and it's a little bit of an issue. But at the same time, if you try to put it all into one monolith, you're going to get a lot of different types of complexity. There's no real way to get around the complexity of this application, because the requirements are the issue. It's actually funny, because the only way I can see to make this simple is to resync the business model. In other words, instead of creating customization for each customer, create an off-the-shelf solution. That's how I think about it. Have a great day.